The Violence Policy Center recently released their report on why men murder women, and we are the sixth worst state in the United States for women that are killed by men. So that means that 44 states are safer for women to live in. And I think a big part of this is how domestic violence is perceived and viewed in this state and in these communities. I believe that teen dating violence legislation that either criminalized the offense or provided education in our school systems of the harms of children being raised in households where they are witnessing domestic violence would help to teach communities the harms of domestic violence. People currently view domestic violence as something that happens within the home and something that should be resolved within the home. There's a common misconception that if you call the police for a domestic violence incident, that the only resolution is that the perpetrator will be sent to jail. There's a number of resolutions available, including access to services, counseling, batter's treatment program, and also protection for the victim or the victim's children. If substance abuse is at play, treatment for that and counseling as well are all possible resolutions for a domestic violence offense. And the misconception that jail is the only option, I think, deters people from believing that domestic violence should be prosecuted. Often those interventions are necessary to get to the root of the perpetrator's problem for why they're acting in this way to begin with. I hope that we'll be able to expand our program to offer assistance to the 46 counties in prosecuting these crimes. I also hope that we'll be able to move in a direction where we'll see more domestic violence education in the schooling system. Domestic violence is an intergenerational cycle, and to break that cycle, education is a huge component in recognizing the harms to children that do witness domestic violence in the home. Children that do witness domestic violence are more likely to become perpetrators of domestic violence or victims of domestic violence, and addressing that through education to reduce domestic violence and break that cycle, I believe, is a very important component that I would like to see. At the end of the day, the work in this field, I think it all comes back to the victims of domestic violence, to letting them have a voice in the system and allowing them to reclaim the title of survivor and to be able to move on past these incidents of domestic violence is my proudest reason for doing this job. Victims of domestic violence have a number of civil remedies in addition to the criminal remedies. If they are a victim of or being subjected to instances of stalking or harassment, they can go through the magistrate court system to obtain a restraining order against that perpetrator. They also, if they qualify as a household member, meaning that the perpetrator of the abuse is a spouse, former spouse, if they have children in common with them, or if they cohabitate or formerly cohabitate, they can go through the family court system to obtain an order of protection, which would prevent the perpetrator from contacting them, from further abusing them, and offer a number of different remedies through that order of protection. If they're a victim of a criminal case, and that criminal case results in a conviction, then the solicitor can ask for a permanent restraining order, which carries up to 3 years if it's violated if the underlying crime and conviction is for a misdemeanor, and up to 5 years for violating that if the underlying crime is a felony. prosecutors and law enforcement get frustrated with victims of domestic violence at times, but I think it's important to remember and always approach these cases and these victims with compassion. This is a partner that they have chosen in a romantic way, and leaving that situation, there's often a number of reasons a victim might stay or go back to a perpetrator that we might not necessarily be able to see, involving the children or financial or otherwise. And I believe that always approaching those cases and those victims with compassion and understanding is really important to make sure that the victim has a positive experience with law enforcement, the court system, and prosecutors, even if they do go back to the perpetrator, so that they're not scared to call for help in the future. I just want to thank the Office of the Attorney General for allowing me to do this work across the state and to serve the victims of domestic violence, and for prioritizing domestic violence and the prosecution of it.